this. We're going to close out now with Dr. V. Is Dr. V with us?
Hi,
Hey, Dr.
how are
V, how are you?
you?
Good.
Good.
So, do we have any new news about this COVID vaccine?
Yeah, well, let me tell you what I wanted to. Well, we do have new news about the COVID vaccine.
Okay.
The Pfizer trial for children found that it was 100% effective between 12-year-olds to 15-year-olds.
Okay.
So I suspect soon that Pfizer will apply for emergency use authorization to give the vaccine down to children as young as 12 years old. But I think, with Easter coming up, a lot of people are wondering, what should we do? We're going to go out for Easter dinner or meet with the family, and some of us are vaccinated and some of us are not vaccinated. And people have been asking me a lot about what to do about that. And so I wanted to really tell people it's really important when you're vaccinated, you can still transmit the virus. So if you have a group, like for instance, for Easter, I'm going and I'm putting together I have a small group of family and friends. It's about 6 of us. We've all been vaccinated. So we can have Easter dinner the way we normally would. But if there's someone who is in your midst, adult or children, that is not vaccinated, then you need to actually wear your mask, socially distance. And also if you're inside, especially inside of a home, open up a window. Ventilation makes a really big difference. So you can also open up a window. But yeah, that's what a lot of people have been asking, because not all their family members have had an opportunity yet to get vaccinated.
Yeah, interesting. So that's a good tip for Easter, because folks are planning right now that Easter dinner with
That's
family
right.
and friends. Yeah.
Open up the window. Open up the window.
Yeah. Well, it's supposed to be a beautiful day, so that will help as well.
Eat outside.
Yeah. So we talked last week about this month and dealing with, I think it was lung disease. I want to ask a little bit about, because I've heard people, we're trying to distinguish between whether they have a cold, an allergy, or actually COVID. And so, how do people really know the difference without having to really go and see their doctor? Or maybe that's what they ought to do. I don't know. But what do you recommend?
You really, a lot of people have said to me, well, it's just like my allergy symptoms. Well, or it's just like my asthma, but that's actually what COVID does. And so, you really don't know unless you get COVID tested. So I tell people, you don't always have a fever. You may or may not have loss of taste of smell. Only about 60% of the people have loss of taste of smell. 40% of them don't. 35% of the people don't have a fever. So there's really not one thing you can, really hang your hat on. So I tell people, especially if it lasts more than 2 or 3 days, get tested. Really make sure and get tested. We need to do way more testing than we're doing right now.
Wow.
We need to do testing of asymptomatic people so we can be clear, what's happening. They just did a test of vaccinated people, and they're going through the data on that so they can actually understand how much are vaccinated people still able to spread the virus. So I tell people, don't hesitate, just go ahead and get tested.
Do you have any sort of general recommendations, though, for people who are suffering from allergies this season? Certain things that they, may need to do. I mean, I know the neti pot thing is one thing folks talk about, but any recommendations?
Well, so let me tell you something that really helps a lot with allergies. And what it does is it kind of desensitizes you a bit to whatever the local pollen is to actually purchase and use locally grown honey. When the bees pollinate, part of what's actually in the pollen and in the air is in the honey. So I always recommend that people get locally grown honey and then use that as a sweetener in their coffee or tea or whatever may happen to be. It actually begins to provide you some protection against the pollen that we see in the springtime. And so that's what I always recommend that people do. And it really helps, but you have to get honey from your local area. You can't get locally grown honey that was, from Memphis or from California. It has to be locally grown here.
Doesn't make sense. Shevry said, like, the local bees produce the local honey, and the local honey produces the local protection against it. Because so many people come to Washington and they say, oh my goodness, well, on the allergy side, they didn't have allergies, but they come here and they develop allergies. And so that makes a whole lot of sense.
And that happened to me too. I never had allergies. And then I moved to DC and I was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
And after I had lived here for about, 8 or 10 years, I developed a sensitivity to everything, and I don't have allergies anymore. But I did use a local honey.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Any other tips for us, Dr. V, before we go?
I just want people to stay safe over Easter. We are almost through this pandemic, but not quite. So, I tell people, gather with family and friends safely.
All right. Thank you
All
so
right.
much for being with us. We'll see you next week.
You're welcome. All right.
All righty. Okay, doke.